Today was the first day of GDC 2024, the Game Development Conference, and we couldn't even go one day, not the first 24 hours of a 5-day program, without being lectured why diversity and inclusion matter in video games. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and we got this right here. Representation with Intention, GDC 2024. Guys, we're going to get into this article. Hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I bring you nerdy news every day, and with the Sweet Baby Inc. debacle and gaming in general being the talk of the town the last 2 weeks, and now with the GDC going on, the Game Development Conference going on throughout the duration of the week, I'm sure we're about to see a lot of articles, think pieces, and leaks with information like this. So hit that subscribe button. We're going to go through this and put on your cringe hats, folks, because let me tell you why it matters. Let's go through here. Day 1 of the 2024 Game Developers Conference opened with a session about fostering inclusivity and diversity in the game communities, with panelists giving a welcome reminder about why this matters and the obstacles standing in the way. I gotta tell you, if you guys saw my episode of Countercast yesterday, you saw that we actually had a decently diverse panel. We had 5 individuals on. One of them, no idea what his race or skin color, ethnicity was. 2 of us were white, 2 of us were black. You want what we were doing? All 5 of us were roasting people like you. We had a very diverse group of panelists just absolutely roasting the shit out of individuals like this, talking about the diversity and the quotas and how this is all wrong, this is all manufactured, it's all fake, and it's all done in a way to make you feel like the villain. The individuals that they're about to talk about, the individuals that are on the fringes that they will talk about in this article, they're talking about me, they're talking about you watching this because they are scared. Hosted by GameSite Head of Creator Programs Jennifer Zoll, the panel featured Capcom's Senior Brand Marketing Manager Jacqueline Simmons and Senior Manager for Social Media and the Community Andy Wong, as well as Lilith Games Senior Brand Marketing Manager Kayla Manzel, formerly Manager of Global Creator Relations and Marketing at 2K. Now, it's interesting. You notice how many women are in these, these sort of marketing roles and whatnot? Also, you had the woman that was the head marketer for Bud Light, and we saw what happened there. I wonder if any of this marketing has led to why there is quite literally a mass exodus and an insane, a doubling down and tripling down of layoffs in the video game industry. The video game industry had 8,000 layoffs in 2023. That's over the entire year. We're in 2024. I'm sorry, had 10,000. My bad. Had 10,000 layoffs in 2023. We are 3 months into the year. We're in March, and it has already had 8,000 this year. So we are coming up on the same amount of layoffs that happened in the gaming industry all year last year within just the first 3 months of this year. And you want to talk about these frivolous things like diversity and inclusion, these manufactured problems that don't actually mean anything while your industry is dying? If diversity, representation, inclusivity, if all that matters, maybe you should listen to all the diverse voices that are telling you to shut the fuck up with this pandering. The talk emphasized how fostering inclusivity in your community can only grow your game and be good for your business, with the panelists highlighting how many issues come from the industry relying on the same bad habits that die hard. One of the biggest obstacles that I've faced comes down to the core factor that people don't like change, Mansell said. No, it's not that people don't like change. Change happens quite a bit. You know, when we had the Super Nintendo and then the Nintendo 64, that was a big change. Games going from 2D to 3D was a big change. Mario going from doot to being able to run around and do backflips and all sorts of craziness, going and finding stars and choosing different levels. That was a pretty big change, and gamers loved it. Gamers were receptive to it because that was positive change. Want what gamers don't like? The same thing that most people don't like, which is negative change for the worse. And that's what you're trying to do when you inject these forced inclusivity and diversity, ethics, everything that you're doing that's absolutely pandering, that you're only doing for your own social credit scores. Yeah, gamers are going to reject that because it doesn't matter your ethnicity, it doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your religion, doesn't matter your creed. Everyone can see through, at least anyone with half a brain cell can see through and know it's all bunk. People are resisting this because it's so obvious how negative it is, how the race relations in multiple communities are the worst they've been in God knows how long, despite the fact that these issues were not arising in the 90s and the 2000s when we were all just gaming together, having fun, doing whatever it is we were doing. You have caused these issues, that way you can have a job to try and fix them, and you're doing a piss poor job of it. We spent too long in the industry doing everything the same way, and people are like, well, we did it like this once and then it made lots of money, let's keep doing it. What is wrong with that? Making money is how the industry continues to move forward. Again, you are literally suffering thousands upon thousands of layoffs right now, and you're talking about, well, we need to change the things that were making money because, we need to change. Like, why do you need to change? Whatever you were doing was making money. Keep working with it. Keep improving upon it. That's how capitalism works, baby girl. But the world is changing, and we need to be able to adapt and... No, the world's not changing. You guys want it to change, but the world's not. In fact, the world is rejecting your change because things were so damn good for so long. The amount of lying and the amount of self-delusion that is being peddled to these video game developers. You got these panelists that are up there that are talking to a room full of video game developers, a room full of industry people, and you know they're lapping up every moment, being like, yes, our time has finally come. Our mission. We are here to explain why everything that we believe ideologically is so important. And all these video game developers and creators and industry individuals that are in the seats that are watching these panelists are like, well, if it's gonna sell more games, I guess, despite the fact that the fans, the paying customers, who are the ones they should be paying attention to, not these rando panelists that are diversity hires or token hires or nepotism hires, whatever they may be. You don't need to be listening to them. You should be listening to us, the paying customers, who have been rejecting nearly everything you've been doing for the last decade, give or take, that has caused a grand total so far in the last 15 months or so, 18,000 layoffs, multiple studio closures, and massive outcry on social media, the complete destruction of Sweet Baby Inc. I mean, do you not look at your customers? Are you so blind you're going to take these industry fools over what the actual people who have the money are trying to tell you? Especially when we think about social media, the world is so huge, but it's really becoming so small. In order for us to be global, we have to think global. Really? Because I don't recall, Capcom thinking global when they made Resident Evil 2, a game that is still beloved and talked about to this day. I'm talking about the original Resident Evil 2. Hell, I don't even remember them thinking global when they made Resident Evil 4. It's still a very inherently Japanese game. What about Persona 5? Persona 5 is regarded as one of the greatest modern RPGs of all time. Were they thinking global? I don't think so, because that's a very intrinsically Japanese game. Yet, people love them. They laud them. They talk about how amazing they are, because we actually wanted what you were doing when you weren't thinking global. When you think global, you're trying to appeal to everybody. And when you try to appeal to everybody, surprise, surprise, you fucking appeal to nobody. We have to think about these cultural barriers, the access that we're giving to these games. So I'm huge on education. They're not huge on education. They're huge on indoctrination. There are so many free resources out there on how we break through these cultural biases as well, because even if you don't realize it, we all have them. So being able to take a step back really is important. Wong, who works on the Capcom Creators Program as part of his responsibilities, highlighted that there's also still a barrier in having executives understand that diversity does positively impact the company. If diversity so positively impacted the company, then why wouldn't these high-level executives, the ones that make the most money, the ones that are the absolute money men, why wouldn't they have noticed this? Isn't that their whole job, being the high-up executives, is to make the company run as flawlessly and smoothly as possible so that they, in turn, as the top brass, get the most money? Why should they take you seriously when you say diversity has a positive impact on the company? You're forced pandering diversity, not the legitimate kind of diversity, which is the diversity of thought, the diversity of ideas. Your forced racist skin tone and ideology-based diversity has been destroying these corporations, and you're like, well, we need to make sure that these head honchos, that they really see that it's a positive thing. Just your scores, your absolute everything that your company's been worth, all of the games that you've been putting out, looking for spoken, have been diminished and destroyed by the actual customers. And you think they're just not going to notice that? Frankly, they might not notice it, considering they're actually taking your word for this nonsense. When you want these diversity initiatives at a game company, at least they're being honest and saying that's what it is. It's a diversity initiative. It's an agenda. It's not something that comes natural. Again, because the only real diversity, the only diversity that should matter is diversity of thought and the diversity of ideas. But they want to pander and do this forced diversity. But we know that already. So they've got these diversity initiatives at a company. You have to need a buy-in from the executives and from the directors. It's up to us to decide and build up a presentation of sorts on how these programs do positively affect overall growth and sales, he explained. I think that's important to the executives. Meanwhile, homeboy here is getting paid to put together these graphs and these charts, all this with data that who knows if the data is legitimate, who knows how the data is collected, because we know there's an inherent bias into how this is going down. We covered it, God knows for how many hours on Countercast yesterday alone, a 3-hour live stream with 2 of it dedicated to how these numbers break down and the fact that they are not to be trusted and they're not legitimate at all. But again, do we expect the head honchos up there in their suits and ties at Square Enix or Capcom to know that? No, of course not. They're going to take whatever the graph says and be like, well, the graph says it, so we must trust these individuals. If the graph says that, sure, but what does your bank account say? Because again, you see these games flop after flop after flop. Maybe not necessarily Capcom, but again, Volition shut the fuck down. That whole company gone. All after these DEI wannabe indoctrination machines decided to come into place. And we do need to prove that there are a lot of numbers out there. Not only do you need to prove there are a lot of numbers, but you need to prove the legitimacy of your numbers. But you know that nobody's asking for those, so you don't actually need to prove it. It's only the small fish like us, the ones that you claim are on the fringes, that are asking for proof that your numbers are accurate. So that is sort of a challenge. We're just doing this for so long. I think most executives I've worked with have been really open to things. Simmons mentioned how tokenism is something that she's encountered throughout her career. The individuals that have been tokenizing minorities in games for the last 10 years now are going to preach to us about tokenism. Fat fucking chance. Guys, this goes on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more paragraphs of this. But it all says the same thing over and over. The same thing we've heard from the very beginning for the last 10 years from the original Gamergate is some version of DEI, some version of wokeism, some version of representation matters, some version of let's get these angry, misogynist, right-wing gamers out of the space. Again, I read through the article, and it was quite literally buzzwords, the article, when it comes to gaming. There was no nuance, there was nothing we hadn't heard before, but again, the reason I'm covering it, despite the fact there's nothing new, is this was opening day at the Game Development Conference, the place where all the bigwigs of all the various companies decide to gather and share ideas and spread information and get funding for their new games and pitch products. You got everyone from Capcom to Nintendo to little tiny indie studios, all conglomerating under the same roof. And on day one, they decide to talk about DEI initiatives. Are you not worried? Are you not fighting back? You should all be making just as much a stink about this as I am, because it's getting out of hand, and if we let this continue, there's not going to be any gaming left as we know it to go forward and play. And don't get me wrong, while I'm cool with sticking to playing my old school games, hell, I'm playing Final Fantasy IX tonight, I would like to be able to embrace some sort of new games, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen when you look at things like this. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about video games, but again, with the GDC going on, there's going to be a lot of that lately. So by all means, hit that subscribe button. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon. Become a member. We are going strong with nearly 40 members now, and I would love for you to join in as well. $4.99 gets you access to the Discord, lets you recommend things that I can react to on stream, choose the articles that I cover, and it's a great time. Also use discount code VITALIDLE. Get yourself some money off of a shirt or a mug. I'd love to see you rep some Words of Paradise merch. And remember, it's all here in the nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.